to deal with this segment. Feel like this one's going to be an interesting one. But to piggyback back to our earlier one, remember, it's opinions. You don't have to agree, but everybody's got an opinion. So yeah, this is an interesting one. I'll let Mark take it away.
Yeah, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine, and it was a situation, and I'm not going to get all detailed into it, but it was a situation where a father and a daughter, both adults, they didn't see eye to eye on something, and the father starts kind of berating his daughter. He's like, I don't know how to tell you, but you're not. And it was off of pettiness. He didn't like what was going on, so he started calling names. Said, I hate to tell you, you're not that smart, and you're a little fat. Now, me and Vanilla Gorilla here had a conversation, and we thought it would be
We had
you
more than we had a whole podcast,
podcast pretty much
yesterday
on
on
the
the phone.
and we were saying, is there any situation
Tracy Pooh.
that a daughter can make the father feel comfortable enough, I guess, to talk to his daughter like that? Now, I can't imagine. I have a son. Does he make me mad at times? Absolutely. My big thing is I know how I am in anger, so when I get angry at him, I tell him, get away from me for a minute. Give me some space for a minute. Because I don't want to say anything like, you big dummy, or, something, of course I wouldn't say big dummy, it'd probably be worse than that, but anything that I would regret, that I would have to apologize about later, I don't want to say to him out of a fit of anger. So I say, look, get away from me for a second. Give me some space. So for those of you watching, which isn't much, but do you ever think there's a situation where a father, daughter, father, son, mother, daughter, mother, son, it's okay to start berating the person or calling them names because something happened that you didn't like? My personal opinion is I don't think so. I mean, I could see how it could happen because anger and passion, sometimes lead you lead you down a bad path or a wrong path or however you want to look at it. I just don't think it's okay for people you love in general to really, put them down because you're angry about something. Anger is really, really a temporary thing. Unless somebody just did something crazy to you. I mean, if my son stabbed me or something, who knows? I mean, might call him names for the rest of his life if I didn't retaliate. So I personally don't think that that's okay at all. What's your opinion on that?
So it's actually happened to me where I've said something I regret to one of my kids, and it's happened, but then I think the good thing about it is I feel bad about it all the time, like just random moments, and I'll start to feel bad about it. Obviously, apologize. Everybody I think that knows me knows how much I care about and love my kids. But it happened, and it only happened the one time, which is another good thing. So if it happens, what you want to do is you want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. It doesn't become a habit. You're not in a pattern, a cycle of abuse, because the last thing you want is your kids being abused by anybody, let alone one of their parents. But also, you don't want to teach them that that's okay. That it's okay to say X, Y, and Z because I was angry. It's okay to do this because whatever, and start making excuses about behavior. It's just, you don't make excuses about your behavior. You can own your behavior, you can apologize, and you can change your behavior. But when you start making excuses about behavior, that's going to lead you into a cycle of abuse, whether it's mental, emotional, verbal. Unfortunately, sometimes physical. I'm very lucky that as a kid I got my ass beat all the time by my dad, but that stopped with my kids. My kids never been hit, never anything. So I'm very proud of that.
Well,
And they're all super well behaved. That they're not very well adjusted and super well behaved. So
well, I will say that I've spanked my son when he was younger, and it stopped a long time ago. You know what I mean? And people have their opinions about spanking. I think there can be reasons to do it. Once again, you don't abuse the child. You don't do it just to beat the child. You're doing it.
There's discipline, and then there's abuse.
Abuse, exactly. Now, I will say, I'm not going to say who the person is I'm on, but I know a mother that in front of me had called her son a effing idiot. And when I heard that, I kind of stopped the person. I said, the parent's supposed to be the protector of the child. The child goes to school and gets, possibly bullied or made fun of by the kids there.
There's enough opportunity for mental and emotional abuse in the world in general. So
right.
Why
so they
would
come
you
home
add
and
to
deal
it?
with that? Like that's supposed to be their solace or their escape from the nonsense. A parent. I can speak for myself. When I was a child, I looked to my parents to be my saviors in a sense, and I can honestly say that this is a funny story. When my ex-wife was pregnant with my son, I was feeling really funny about the whole, the hormone thing and how the attitude can change and everything, and I really felt like I was taking some abuse. Verbally, and I went to my father and I said, listen, you've been through this several times. I was my dad's ninth child. I said, you think there's anything you can say to her to kind of, he's like, oh boy, I ain't got nothing to do with that. That's between you. That's the first time I ever felt abandoned by my father. Like I really was like, because my father would have done anything for me. You understand? So that's how much of a protector and how much love my parents showed me. It was surprising to hear a parent talk like that to their child. Now, granted, it was really just a quick fit of anger. They were mad at something which they had a legitimate reason to be mad. Okay? Problem is, I think the anger was taken too far.
Right.
You understand? So I don't think even, if you're both adults, the child can probably take it better, but that still hurts because once again, that's parents are supposed, in my opinion, supposed to be best friends with their children. You know what I mean? Like a child, the first man your daughters ever loved was you.
Right.
You understand? The first woman your sons ever loved was their mom. You understand what I'm saying? So it's really hurting. There was a time, and I don't talk about it much, and if you ever heard the song that I made about my mom, The Real MVP, there's a line in there. I said, Ma, I apologize if I caused you pain. Me and my mother have been in an argument, like a serious one, probably one time. You understand? And we were both hurt by it. You understand? I thought I was the only one hurt by it at first. But we had a conversation. We got way past that. That's not. Edna, how you doing? Glad you're watching. We got past that real quick, But I remember how much pain that caused me, and I'm grown, and of course she's grown. You know what I mean? So it doesn't stop. That's the person, in a sense, you're closest to. You know what I mean? I know you get married, and you grow up, get married, and your wife becomes the closest person to you, whatever. But that still, it hurt a lot.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm glad we had the wherewithal to get past it. I'm not really big. Well, that might be a lie. I do hold grudges, but I try not to. I'm not perfect, but
But I mean, holding grudges depends on the relationship, right?
Yeah.
It depends on your relationship with the person, whether you're holding a grudge, whether you can let it go, whether it's long-term grudge or a short-term grudge. It's dependent on the relationship.
Right. So we were able to get past that.
I will say that I have a way different. So my mom routinely would call any of us idiots or dumb. And I guess it never bothered me. And maybe I just react to things differently because I knew I wasn't dumb. I mean, you don't skip 3 grades and start college at 15, 16 and be dumb. So she used it more
to get your attention.
nah, to try to make us do what she wanted us to do. For example, she used to make me shave my face all the time. You had to be clean shaven. I didn't drive because obviously I was too young to take driver's ed in high school, so I didn't drive. So even when I was my first year in college, I was at Goldie Beacon. My mom had to take me to and from school. There was no Ubers back then.
Right.
And I remember one day I didn't shave, and she said something along the lines of, "I'm not taking you out of the house looking like an idiot." You know, so my mom routinely, she never cursed ever in her life. I'll say that for my mom. Literally, woman never cursed in her life. But to call you stupid, idiot, dumb, she never went with like you're ugly and you're fat and all that stuff. Well, no, that's not true. She did call me fat before. But whatever. It wasn't when I was a little kid. That was when I was, well, you're just getting fat. You know, she would say that. But I just took it with a grain of salt. It didn't really bother me. Never really stuck with me. But, so, we didn't have daycare when me and my ex-wife were married. We didn't have daycare. My mom would watch our kids. Now, I remember Caitlin coming home, and she was probably like younger than 3-4 years old. And I remember Caitlin was like bagging up laughing. She was like, "My mom called me a dummy," but she was bagging up.
Right.
And she would get into, my mom and Colin did not get along. Like,
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it wasn't Colin's fault. It just he wasn't the way she wanted him to be.
Okay.
Born in literally the last year of the 30s, did way different mentality. Like, just did things differently. It's just very opinionated, all that type of stuff. And would frequently call Colin an idiot and he's stupid, all this type of stuff. So that made it a little harder. But again, like me, it didn't bother my kids. Like I said, Caitlin was bagging up laughing. Colin, he just, whatever. Like, he didn't care that she was saying it.
Right.
So by not caring this, it just didn't affect him. So,
Well, I'll say this. My mom never... I don't remember my mom ever calling us names. However, my mom did tear her behind up. Like, we got... Listen, it was a regular thing to get a... towards the end, before I guess she would, stop beating me, it was so normal. You just walked into it like, whatever, get it over with.
right.
And, my mom would do a thing, and listen, I have no qualms about how my mom raised me or the whoopings or anything. I actually think it instilled discipline. I think that it also
It gives you a
kept us from
consequence.
running wild, too. Yeah,
It's a consequence in today's society where you're not doing that stuff.
Right.
Kids grow up without understanding what
Justin, what's going on, bro?
Kids grow up without understanding consequences. So they are impulsive and they just act and do whatever because there's no thought to the consequence. Well, you can't touch me, so you can do whatever you want. And that's what's lacking. And again, nobody is saying beat the shit out of your kids
not at all.
or anything like that. But a timeout is not a consequence. I don't give a fuck how long you put them in timeout. It's not a consequence.
And while we were on the subject, just to go back, because Justin just came on. Justin's a new father. I don't mean to put you on blast, but the segment started off with I had a buddy told me about his girlfriend and the father had gotten into an argument, and he just started berating his daughter like, "You're not very smart. You're not fat.
Just being
excuse me, you're fat."
being verbally abusive.
Yeah, being verbally abusive. Do you think it's okay for a parent at any point,
See a
however
trace.
mad the child makes the parent, that it's okay for them to, be verbally abusive in that sense? My opinion was no. I said I know that anger comes out of passion, and it's a temporary thing, but that's a thing we want. I personally think we should refrain from, because parent is looked at as a protection for a child, as a savior in a sense. So you can respond to that if you like. If not, I understand. But yeah, my mom used to make us go get the belt. And you remember belts that came with the pants back in the late 80s, early 90s? They'd be made out of cardboard. They would come with slacks sometimes, with pants. So we would go get the cardboard belt, knowing that it wasn't going to hurt.
Right.
And Mom would be like, "If you don't go in there and get the right belt, I'm going to tear you behind up worse." And then you were about the business. You came out with the belt, and then you try to give it to her. And as soon as she grabbed it, you try to take it back,
This never happened to me.
Okay.
I don't know if you're, but I'm old enough to remember you used to be able to get paddled in school.
I was in a school where there was a paddle up. I think they had stopped it, though. There was a
I want
paddle
to say
on
it
the
was
wall.
like 80, 81 or 82. I think they stopped it literally the first year I was in elementary school. So I was in second grade. And I remember this kid was acting up on the bus. And wasn't no little write-up, wasn't no, man. He just, when he got to school, they took him in the principal's office. And he got his ass tore up. Came to the classroom crying and all that. I was like, damn.
Yeah. That's, somebody would, I hate to say it, somebody would get killed in today's society.
Oh, for sure.
There's no way that could happen. Plus, with all the laws and all the protection and everything, and we live in a, sue first society.
Trust me, I worked for the children's department for the
yeah,
state of
that's right.
Delaware for
That's
quite
right.
a few years. So it is a double-edged sword where the lack of consequence versus the behavior, it's out of control, and ultimately, if you're not taught consequence at home, you're not going to have consequence anywhere else. So it just is what it is with that.
Yeah, that's a good answer, Justin. You see that? Can you see that? You want me to read it out loud?
Yeah, that's it. Right. Yeah. So, you definitely, I guess the short answer is no one should be abusive to anybody, regardless of age, regardless whether they're your family or not, whatever. And then things would be easier. However, we don't live in that perfect type of world bubble, and shit's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I said it earlier. It's how you respond to the shit that happens that's more important than the actual shit that happens. And
But see, the main thing I was worried about, is that a child hear that and might not recover from that, especially depending on their age, because they're so impressionable.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of what Justin had said too, that they're going to grow up. It's going to be a reminder. You don't want your child hating you. You want your child to respect you. I don't even think you want your child to really fear you. I think you want them to have a healthy respect.
I'm good with fear,
for you.
though.
Well, fear.
I like fear.
It's a line between fear and a healthy respect, I believe.
Because even my kids will say, Dad, we never thought that you were going to hit us. We were never worried about you actually hitting us. But we were worried. We are scared of you because the potential is there.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. Because, again, my kids are all well adjusted. They're all behavior problems. I think Colin's the only one that's ever gotten suspended, and he got suspended for a dumbass reason. I'll tell you this story real quick. So we were speaking about his magic earlier. So Colin did a magic trick that one of his friends filmed.
Okay.
And he was in the media department at Del Castle.
So this was a senior year?
Yes, maybe. So he was like the news anchor and all that stuff for Delta. So he had a laptop that the school gave him. So he did a magic trick where he was on the second balcony and threw it off, and it was destroyed. But then it wasn't, right? So the magic trick was whatever. So
Right.
anyway, they wanted to suspend him for 5 days, and they kicked him off the Cougar Cast, which is he was the newscaster. So they kicked him off of that. They suspended him from that,
Right.
and then they wanted to suspend him for 5 days. Now I didn't personally go to the school because if I went, I would have turned it out.
Right.
Like maybe.
Like me, when something happened at the job, we used to work at together.
But I mean, at the same time, one of my younger brother's best friends is the principal there, so I don't know that I would have had to. But they reduced the suspension down to 1 day,
Okay.
and the reason why they gave him the 1 day is they said because they put it on Snapchat, it would encourage other kids to destroy computers. And I was like, I wouldn't have accepted that. I would have went to school and said, no, it encourages other kids to be fucking creative. Go learn magic. If any other kid can do this magic trick, fine, they can do it.
Right.
But if you can't do it without destroying the computer, that's a different story. But anyways, again, my ex-wife went. I didn't go. I didn't get told about it till after, obviously. Because I wouldn't have been okay with him being suspended for 1 day at all.
Right.
But so that's just long story short. He's the only one of my kids ever get suspended, and that's what he got suspended for. So it wasn't like he did like fighting, cursing at a teacher, or anything like that. And actually, I think I only got suspended once in my whole life,
Right.
and it was for 1 day also.
Oh, no, buddy. I used to, listen, I went to AI Middle, okay? I had a little phase, I'm ashamed to say this, where I was a bully, okay? I used to get into fights all the time at AI Middle. I would get suspended. I was so, and here's the thing, my father ever beat me one time in my life. One time, okay? I stole something from Pathmark, I was young, okay? Got away with it the first time, went back up there, got greedy, and tried to do it again. Only time my dad ever whooped me, and it was so weak that it didn't even.
You
he
could tell
just
it
getting
was
my
he was
attention.
he wasn't into it.
Right. So, oh, okay. So AI, I was so scared of my father that I wouldn't tell him I was suspended. I'd go to school the next day.
Mm-hmm.
What AI would do, they would announce over the morning announcements. If Mark Mathis, such and such a kid, everybody was suspended, they would announce, say, go to the office. Because the thing is, if you're there, the teachers know now, you got to go to the office. You understand what I'm saying? So I would go, they would send me to the office. Mark, you ain't supposed to be here. I know. We got to call your dad. Okay. My dad come in and he point that finger. My dad never screamed at me a lot, but he would point this finger, and that was enough. I knew he was disappointed, and that was enough for me, and I'd have to go home and be suspended anyway, you know what I mean? But he had to, after doing his bus route in the morning, he would come and have to be at the school, which I'm sure he didn't really appreciate,
Right.
So,
But that's the way they got to parents. Like, I'm gonna make your parent miss out on work, and then they're gonna be so mad they're gonna deal with your little ass.
he didn't have to come. He could have actually, I would have stayed in the office all day and caught the bus home, but I would have had to stay out of school the next day. But I could never tell him that I was suspended.
Right.
It just didn't, because, Dad was the one who spoiled me. So if I told Dad I got in trouble, I'm not going to get that He-Man toy, or I'm not going to get this, or whatever the case was at the time, So that was, It was hard for me. So I got suspended a lot when I was at AI, man.
Nope. When I was in middle school, I actually went to a school where my dad was like kind of like the disciplinarian, so you can't get in trouble. You get beat right in the school. So I never got in trouble. I think I got in school suspension for 1 day, but my dad had told us You get one. This was before I even started to go there. He said, do it with your brother. You get one time. Anything after one time. So
When I went to Glasgow, my brother-in-law was not only the track coach. My brother-in-law was not only the track coach. He was also like the security there. When kids would get kicked out of class, the security guy would come get you. It was like 5 of them. I got in trouble once at actually I think I got in trouble. No, one time at Glasgow. What happened was, and I'm not proud of this either. And I was young. There was a girl that kept running her mouth. Okay. Now my thing is, you don't put your hands on a girl, right? Run her mouth. So what I do instead of putting my hands on her, I grab a book and I hurled it across the room and hit the typewriter. It was in counting class, but we were in the typing classroom. And my teacher, who loved me to death, Mark, get out. I waited for a second. I said, you know, it'd be better if I walked myself to the office. So I walked out of the class before. Now, I don't know if somebody still came or whatever, but I just didn't.
But you were there. Yeah. Oh, I got Glasgow was the only time I got suspended too. But yeah, I remember good old Glasgow. That's some rough times.
Miss Kent was my accounting teacher. Miss Kent. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Miss Kent. Good teacher. Yeah.
I mean, my parents worked in the school district, so it wasn't too much of a thing for them to get in contact with my parents. Even if my parents didn't work in the school, like they knew him. The principal of Glasgow, Mr. Anderson, they used to live on the same street. Like
Miss Anderson, black ball headed guy.
Yeah,
he was still the principal when you was there.
Yeah.
He
had just started.
Robert
Yeah,
Anderson,
he had started.
Right?
Yeah, Robert Anderson. He had started like maybe 2 years. He was either principal at Gauger or he was the vice principal at Gauger. And then like I think 1 or 2 years before I went to Glasgow, he became the principal of Glasgow. But they used to live on the same street as us, and then they kind of moved. But like we used to play with his son Robbie and all. So screw up at Glasgow, Mr. Anderson's gonna call PUE, and then I'm gonna be in trouble. So I just couldn't. So and that's the thing that we're talking about. There was consequence. Like I thought about the consequence, weighing: should I cut class? Is it worth the consequence when I get home?
Oh, let me tell you something. Glasgow's the only place I ever cut class, but it wasn't really class. What happened was when I started driving, they would have the pep rallies. I'm cool now. I got a car. You understand? I'm not staying for this pep rally. Now, at Glasgow, they had a little fence that would block in the cars and the parking, but they would keep it closed during the school hours. So I didn't want to stay for the pep rally. You know what I did? I drove up the grass and went out. Every time they had a pep rally, I left. There was no need for me to stay. You know, so those grass marks back in 95 and 96, that was me. The tire tracks in the grass was me. So, but good times.
I couldn't cut, and I lived right across, so I could have literally just walked home every day.
Oh wow!
Okay. You know, but yeah, good old G High. G High.
And I think when I would leave too, I just said, they had a pep rally. I didn't need to stay for it, and that was it. That was the end of the conversation. There was no, hey, you're home a little early.
I would come late. Like I didn't care about homeroom. Homeroom, that was probably the most misbehaving that I did. Was just I just wouldn't come for homeroom because one of the dudes that I grew up with, James, he had gotten a car. And they had literally just built the McDonald's up there by People's Plaza. Well, they just built People's Plaza.
Right.
So every morning, we would go to McDonald's, get breakfast, and then come to school. But we'd be late like every day, and I didn't care. I didn't care about homeroom. I never.
Right.
I cared, but then I didn't care. Like they couldn't mark you absent just because you were late or you skipped homeroom.
Right.
So.
And homeroom had no purpose except for sitting down and getting your mind right.
Talking shit.
It. Yeah.
I was in. Let's see. I think Ralphie Greg was in my homeroom. I think. I don't remember. But yeah, my homeroom was upstairs my first year at Glasgow, and then the next 2 years, I literally had the same. The art class was my homeroom.
You know, my homeroom teacher was, oh man, what was her name? I want to say Isabella, but I'm not sure if that's correct because I know my advisor was Mr. Isbell. But there was a Spanish teacher named
Shout out
Isabella
to Mark
like
Jr.
But me and her did not get along at first because there was a. I'm not going to get into what it was because of the political aspect of it, but there was something I didn't do every morning. She took offense to it. And she would tell my advisor. I would go to my advisor, Mr. Isbell, who actually was friends with my brother-in-law. And
yeah, I'm friends with his son. Me and the son talk all the time.
Yeah. He kept begging me, just do this, just do that. And finally I agreed to something he said. So I started doing it. Me and that lady became so close before I stopped going to Glasgow. And she cried, actually, when I walked across the stage and gave me a big hug, you know, and I'll never forget that. And if I remembered your name and if you was watching, I would definitely give you an apology for the little bit of trouble I gave you. But that wasn't directed towards you ever. It was directed to me taking whatever stand I believed I was taking at the time. So
I have never graduated. Never graduated. Didn't graduate from high school because I graduated. I met the requirements for graduating after summer school. So I went to Caravel for a year, transferred back to Christina School District only to take summer school English. Passed English, and then I met the requirements for graduation because I had a ton of credits because I literally went to summer school every year, which is why I graduated early. But then junior college, I was supposed to graduate and didn't. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was just being a jerk. They were like, Cam, you know, buy your cap, gown, all that stuff. I was like, man, I'm not doing that. They were like, but I was a RA, a resident assistant at the time. So they were like, well, you got to go to it anyway. You might as well graduate. And I was like, no. And they were like, well, you got to be an usher then. So I ended up being an usher at my own graduation because I refused to actually walk.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, I think that's going to end this segment. We got one more coming up for y'all. So if you're on live, give us a minute. We will be right back.